Welcome to In the Blue. I am your host, Dr. Corey Frogley, and we've got an incredible show to you today. In fact, if you want to make more money in your practice, if you want your team to actually walk around with rakes, raking the dollar bills out of the corners of your of your treatment rooms, we've got a show for you today. And my host, or my guest, not my host, I'm the host, of course, but my guest is Sean Crabtree of the Crabtree Group. And it is a group because, he's not a one-man band. If you've seen any of the social media, they are killing it out there. And you probably are already following Sean because if you have on his social media, they're doing some great bits, some very casual stuff, driving around the car, walking out in the park, but he's blessing us by showing us his guns and
Oh my God.
He's done a good job catching our attention. But that's not what makes Sean special. It's the fact that Sean's built a consulting agency that has blown away the single practices. That's kind of where their sweet spot is, what they focused on, but they're helping scale multiple locations. And for 2 decades, he's been helping dental clinics increase their profits on average. And this is a correct average because these guys know their numbers. And that's a big part of why he's on the show. But 46% increase in production and collections. Are you kidding me? And that's just in the first 12 months. Mm-hmm. So this is a gentleman that knows what he's talking about. He's from the South. He spoke all over the country. I don't have the time to go into this because this is a very short show. And as you know, we're all about digestible content. And our presentation today, or our conversation today, is really how to set the stage for treatment acceptance. And Sean, who is a master at this, here we go, baby. We're ready.
Corey, listen, it's hard for me to even live up to all the kind of things that you said there. I really appreciate that. And one correction, it's not uncommon for our guys to grow 100% in the first 12 months. That 46% is kind of what we average as a whole, but it is not uncommon for them to grow 100%. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate this. This is going to be a lot of fun.
It's our honor for sure. So let's jump into that. Treatment acceptance obviously is one of the hottest topics in the market because it is kind of the heartbeat of, scheduled production. So take us from tip to tail and let's start with that concept that you have that dentistry and this goes because we have a large audience of chiropractors and physical therapists and medical providers. Treatment presentation, I don't care what type of provider you are.
Across the board.
Yeah, these are the same fundamental concepts.
Absolutely.
So that's what I love about your teaching. And so set that stage for us and clarify the difference between dental treatment versus commodity financial presentations.
That's a great question. And I have to tell you that this is what got this conversation that you and I are having is actually what got me into healthcare. A little over 20 years ago. I was in the corporate arena in telecommunications, and I'll make this story quick, but I started out in telecommunications before it became majorly corporatized. And I was training young reps in a tri-state area on this conversation. It was amazing to me that the things that I was training these young 20-somethings on was really a foreign concept when it came to all of the healthcare verticals that you just mentioned right there. And so it was very attractive for me to come to a place where I was the only guy who knew a language that was pretty much foreign to everybody else. And honestly, that's what got me into this business. When you talk about setting the stage and benefits versus commodities, I think the first thing that I would say is this, when you look at the concept of treatment acceptance, you have to rework the way you're thinking about it a little bit. Most people think, if they're in healthcare, they think that treatment acceptance happens at the financial. Actually, there are steps all along this process, and it actually begins with what we call the intake call, which is that initial phone call of the new patient. In this example, let's say. setting the stage by properly qualifying the patient. And what we're really talking about doing there is making sure that we as a team are not getting a surprise by what we might find. In other words, we've asked the questions on the front end so that we kind of have an idea. We don't know what we're going to find until ultimately we look into the mouth, or if you're a chiropractor or, whatever your situation is, until you do a full exam, you're not really clear. However, there's a lot of information that you can ask on the front end so that you're not going to get a major surprise. The other aspect of setting the stage is when you're asking the questions on the intake call, and this is probably the most important part, you're bringing the patient along with you for the ride so that they don't get any surprises as well. If you're talking about a dental office and the patient calls and asks, what do you charge for cleaning? If you answer that question and schedule the patient's walking in thinking cleaning. They're probably also thinking, how much could it be? I got $10 in my pocket, right? And then when they come in and there's $12,000 worth of work, they're shocked out of their gourd, and we weren't expecting that either. We were thinking of cleaning, right? Yeah. So that's part of setting the stage, is properly qualifying the patient. And the real outcome to that is to make sure that the patient is under the right mindset, they're not getting any surprises, and we're not getting any surprises. Now, of course, I could go all day long on that. But I love digestible content, so I'm trying to keep it short. Corey, I'm trying my best.
You're spot on. You're spot on, and that's what let's just concept number one for especially for our new docs, is that as Sean said, if you're sitting down and we're really engaging a sales conversation with a patient on presenting care and expecting them to have a yes or no, and you believe that it started 5 minutes ago, there's a huge problem.
Exactly.
And that it's not the person, presenting care or handling the financials' sole responsibility for the success of this patient acceptance. And as Sean said, there's steps. And the first step starting with that new patient phone call, and that's what they train on. That's their scripting. Yeah. That's, if you don't have a good script to pull information on the patient. And the thing I love about that, Sean, is that it creates a unique experience, right? They can call 100 clinics, 100 offices, whether dental or whatever, and have that question answered. We're $199. We're whatever.
You're right. The other aspect of that, not to interrupt, but the other aspect of that is, and this is a side benefit that most people don't think of. I think in healthcare, people in healthcare are so altruistic and they're so focused on it. And I love that. And that's one of the things that also attracted me to healthcare. But here's the thing. Along with that mindset is this attitude sometimes, or this idea that if the patient asks a question and I answer the question, I'm helping them out. It's actually the other way around. You've got, as the healthcare professional, you've got to be the one asking the questions. Now, the side benefit to that is when that starts on the intake call and you're the one asking the questions, not only are you developing rapport, not only are you eliminating surprises for you and for the patient, they also walk in the door with a very solid relationship established. And they're, just because you ask the questions on that intake call, they're automatically looking at you as the authoritative healthcare professional. Now, that may fly in the conventional wisdom face, but that's really the way it works. Asking the questions is what develops the authority. It's not giving the answers. And make no mistake, if you're going to help the patient at the highest level, you've got to be in a position of authority, right?
Yeah, spot on.
If the doctor tells you you're going to die, so you got to stop eating red meat, if they don't have any authority when they tell you that, then you're not going to do it, right?
Not going to do it. So let's just go into that then, that you now, as that front desk who has answered all those questions, or if you're doing it in the back office, whoever person is handling the new patient phone calls, what do they do with the information? They now have really valuable information.
A great question.
What do they do with it?
That is a really great question. And I didn't get to all of the steps, but of course, that's the first step. And we were talking about the fact that, a lot of people think that the treatment acceptance happens at the end with the financial. It starts with the intake call. It continues with what happens when they show up. It continues with what happens chair side in the op. And then it culminates into a financial arrangement that is simply a financial arrangement. On the intake call, when you get that information, you've got the opportunity to share that. If you're having a morning huddle, I hope you're having a morning huddle. If you're not having a morning huddle, I would suggest that you have a morning huddle. That's not simply a healthcare thing. That's a good business thing. Yeah. Every great business on there has a morning meeting, and that's your opportunity. That's part of preparing for the day, is sharing information that you know ahead of time, just as it would be if you have a patient coming back into hygiene, and this particular patient has a diagnosis that wasn't acted on. Well, now, we need to be aware of that, and we need to be able to plan for that. And so those are things that you share in the morning meeting.
I love that.
It puts you at an advantage to be able to help the patient at the highest level.
I went to a new dentist recently, and I had scheduled my family, and I walked in, and I was so impressed that as the hygienist greeted me to take me back, they asked me about my kids by individual name.
Wow. That information had been shared, right? Wow.
Yeah, I could tell. I mean, like, obviously they didn't really, they kind of knew who I was because I refer some patients over to them, but I'm assuming they treat everybody like this. They really took the time that the team knew their new patients, and then made it a point to me to connect with me through my personal experiences. And I tell you, I was wowed. That was a wow factor for me.
There was actually a study done years ago, and this makes sense when you think about it. There was a study done years ago of 1,000 patients, and I apologize, I can't remember who actually did this study. I have it somewhere, but they polled 1,000 patients around the U.S., and they asked them a couple of questions. What is the most important thing to you as a dental patient? What's the most important thing to you in terms of your relationship with the dentist and the dental team? And they had several multiple choice items. 98% of them checked the box, quality of care. The next question was, how do you determine what quality of care looks like? And they had all these check boxes, right? None of it had anything to do with dentistry. The patients judge quality of care by things like you're saying. Do they know my name? Do they know my history? Do they remember me from my last visit? Does it look like everybody's on the same page and communicating at a high level? Is the place clean? I mean, and if you think about it, it makes sense, Corey, because I don't know about you, but I know zero difference between the Dish Network versus who's the other one, Mr. Producer? DirecTV. I don't know the difference between the technology of those two companies, but I absolutely know how they treat me and how I view that treatment of me. And so I think that's something that we have to keep in mind. It's along the same lines as that next point that you and I were talking about a moment ago, which is benefits versus commodities. This is not a healthcare thing. I think this is true of all of us. Whatever business it is that we're in, we thoroughly enjoy the technical, tactical, clinical aspects of what it is that we do. But make no mistake, the end users of our services and our products are probably not honed in, don't care about the technical, tactical, clinical aspects. Yeah. They're looking for the benefits of those things. Yeah. And that's really an important conversation when it comes to treatment acceptance. People in healthcare don't realize a lot of times that just even the words that they use with each other, it's almost a code. In dentistry, anybody can look at an x-ray in dentistry and go, hey, here's what you need. And so you look at an x-ray and go, crown, right? But to the end user, there's a whole bunch in between of looking at the x-ray and here's the crown.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to communicate that in terms of benefits. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but the way I look at it is simply this. None of us, you or I or anybody listening or watching, none of us want cars, clothes, shoes, teeth, belts, purses. We don't want those things, right? There are emotional benefits that we're looking for in those things. And that's what it's really all about. I do a full day on just this conversation. I challenge people at the end of the day, go watch any commercial that you see on television. Are they really selling a commodity, or are they trying to sell you on an emotional feeling or a benefit? I mean, Pepsi and Coke, these guys are not selling brown, sugary, carbonated liquid. Each one of them is trying to get you and I to connect to a feeling, to a benefit of a feeling that we will have. And that emotion is what it is that we're all after.
I love that. And the fact that you do a whole day training shows our audience how important this conversation is. And here's a question for you, because I think this is debated in our industry a little bit, of when you're doing the diagnosis and you're talking about then the solution and the benefits of that, and connecting that to the emotional thing that that'll bring, versus if we don't handle it, do you train on, do we touch on some of the consequences by not handling it, or do you stay solely focused on the benefits?
You mean with the patient? Do you touch on
With
that?
the patient, yeah. So let's say they need a crown, and you say, hey, if we don't handle this, this can lead to further decay, infection getting into the bloodstream, a potential root canal, or if you don't do root canals, we pull that out and we put in a post.
Well, first of all, I mean, you mentioned early on about scripts. I am not a fan of scripting anything. I just did a little video on this the other day in our closed Facebook group. I do a little morning huddle thing every morning, and I was just having a conversation on this. At the end of the day, I think we have to realize that we are in the service business, and that is people oriented. And so you're not going to be able to pre-plan how you approach this. You're not going to be able to script it. The only thing you can script and pre-plan is what is your outcome. And then based on that outcome, I have to have the presence of mind in the moment to sort of dance in traffic a little bit with different personalities, different circumstances, different situations. And I have to keep the outcome in the moment in my mind and be how I need to be able to get there. So I'm not a big fan of scripts. I'm a big fan of getting clear and pre-planning the outcome that you have. And as that relates to your question, I think the thing that I've learned is there's an old saying, whatever you tell me is true, but it's only true for you. Whatever you ask and I tell you is true, and it's true for me. And if I'm the patient and you're trying to influence my decision making, and I think maybe we should stop right there. We have to be okay in healthcare with influencing our patients' thinking. I mean, we have to be. That is absolutely part and parcel of the process. There's no way that they're going to know everything that you know as the healthcare professional. So if I'm going to do that, then I think rather than me telling them all of the things that are going to happen or could happen by not getting this treatment, I think what's most important is that I find out what it is that's important to them, and then show them how this treatment is going to get them what it is that they're looking for. Now, if what it is that they're looking for is they want to escape this embarrassment or whatever it is that they're at, then I think, yes, you need to show them if you don't get this done, this, you very likely going to be continuing to be embarrassed. So it's much more about finding out what's important to them and then showing them how what it is that they need is going to get them where it is that they want to go. Does that make sense?
To recap that, and I appreciate those words of advice, and I want our audience to write this down, that you resolve a patient's concerns by asking more questions. It's the more powerful questions that helps the patient process what they're dealing with. Because, and again, I don't want to jump ahead of you because I know we're headed to this point, but when we're actually talking about the money, the patient should have already made the decision. I need this. I have to have this.
That is the most important thing that we could say. There's no doubt about it.
And I think you get them there by those right questions.
Absolutely. And I think that in itself is a rework, Corey. I think sometimes we have to I think sometimes it takes a little bit to realize that that's actually the case. Because we want to help, we want to give answers, but really the best answers lie in better questions.
I love that. Love that. So let's get into the financial presentation then. We've diagnosed it. We've talked about treatment. They're at a yes, because again, we don't go into the financial presentation until they're at a yes, I want this care. What's your gems here that we can harness?
Well, I think what you said is the most important thing. And anybody who presents financials is going to love to hear you and I say this, because if the patient has not already made a decision before the financial comes to me, if I'm the person presenting it, if the patient has not already made that decision, then they're not in a position for me to have a conversation about the financials. So the thing that's the most important gem, we have a process that we go through in our courses and in our online courses specific to this financial. But the key to what you're saying is to realize that the sale, so to speak, or the acceptance has got to have already happened by the time we're ready for the financial. The financial then should be strictly about the financial. And you'll find if you're listening to this and you're watching this, you're probably shaking your head. Oh my gosh, that is the greatest thing I've ever heard, because I've been struggling with these financial arrangements for years. The rest of my team needs to hear this. But it really is true. Or options. Options is another thing. If I'm taking a patient to a financial and we're ready to talk about and the financial is about options, then the decision, as you say, has not been made, and we're not ready for a financial. The financial should be about the financial. I think about it like this. If I'm looking for a house, I don't walk in with the realtor, view the house, and sit down at the closing table in the kitchen and then decide whether or not I want to buy the house. It's not the way it works, right? I make the decision. We agree on the offer. I've already made the decision to buy. We've signed the deal, and then I sit down at the closing table and work out the details, right? And that's the way it works. That's the way it should work in healthcare. The decision should already be made. Another way to say that is the patient has to have already seen value, which means we can't have options, right? We've already narrowed it down. This is the treatment plan. The patient understands that this treatment plan is going to get them where it is that they want to go. They see value in the treatment plan. They're ready to go. And the only question mark is, how do we make that as affordable as possible? And one of the things I have to say, I just did a video on this yesterday in our closed Facebook group. Third-party financing is one of the most underutilized tools that are available to the healthcare practice. Whether it's a multi-practice or a single practice, I mean, this third party, there are at least at any one point in time, there are at least 15 companies out there that are scratching and clawing for the ability to offer patient financing. We need to take advantage of that. And it's the thing that puts the practice on a level playing field with all of the companies that are out there competing for those same discretionary dollars. Sometimes we think in dentistry, let's say that our competition is other dentists. It's actually not. We're competing with other companies that are after those same discretionary dollars. We're competing against Best Buy, Disney Cruise and Ford Motor Credit and all of those kinds of things. And with third-party financing, you have the ability to be very competitive and make it super affordable for the patient. Yeah. There's companies out there. Green Sky Financial is one of them that will go out, if I'm not mistaken, about 86 months. So if you can imagine a treatment plan that you could finance over 86 months, I mean, you're talking about really affordable conversation.
Really low payment. Yeah, that's incredible. So if we're talking to the practice owners here, and as we kind of now circle this all up together in a nice little package, the goal for this is that the practice owner wants to have confidence in the team and obviously the person presenting finances. And how do we create superstars? How do we get them to own this role and do it even better than the practice owner?
Well, you know what? I can tell you that is one of the things that I am most proud of. And there may be some guys that are watching in one of our groups here that may be commenting. We just had a little outage here, Corey, and so I can't actually see your screen, and so I don't know if anybody's commenting or not. But we've got some clients that we worked with for years that absolutely are superstars. I think the thing that makes that happen is when you get, especially if you've been in the healthcare arena for a while and you've had some of these struggles, right? When it comes to the financial, let's say, or when it comes to chair side, you've got this patient and you're just struggling to have them understand how badly they need this treatment, and they're not seeing value in getting it done. And so you kick the can down the road and you feel sort of beat up. Over time, when you really understand the concepts that we very quickly have gone over, there's a level of confidence that shows up that is unsurpassed. And when you really get some confidence under your belt, then you have an understanding that if I don't find out what's most important to this patient before I find out what's going on clinically, if I don't find out what's on their heart before I find out what's going on in their mouth, then when I present the treatment, the chances of them accepting it are low. And so because I've come to that understanding and I have confidence now on how to create the value, I put the focus in the places that it needs to be. And if we're talking about chair side, I do a great job not focusing on the commodity of the dentistry, but focusing on finding out what's on the heart of the patient. And that develops confidence so that I can see a 98% acceptance rate over time. Or in a financial, you know, we've done a great job. We got a couple of wins under our belt. We're starting to develop confidence that we're having the decision made, as you said, before the financial gets to me. And so when I present the financial, instead of it being a 30-minute tug of war where I'm trying to convince the patient that maybe this is something that they need and yes, they can afford it, it lasts maybe, 2 minutes, and it's just easy peasy, and the patient loves us for it. And when you have a couple of those wins and you get that confidence under your belt, you really start to be able to put your focus in the places that it needs to be. And it just it just continues and it swells. I was on a social media platform here not long ago, and there was somebody who posed a question in a forum regarding treatment acceptance. And I was trying to help, and I jumped out there and I said, here's what you need to do. And I gave some advice. And by the way, 98% treatment acceptance is possible. Oh my gosh. I must have had thousands of dentists, it seemed like anyway, come out of the woodwork and reply to that comment. That's crazy. There's no way on earth. Nobody has any more than a 30% treatment acceptance rate. That's ridiculous. Oh, that's impossible. And some of the guys who were commenting were like, yeah, not only, we're getting 100%, we've been doing these things, right? And we've got 100% acceptance over time, or a 99% acceptance rate over time. That confidence is what builds rock stars. And at the end of the day, Corey, you and I both know when you're able to help patients at the highest level, the feeling that you get from that is invaluable. And that's where the rock star status comes in. When you know that 9.8 times out of 10, when a patient presents with whatever they present, you can help them see value in that and help them pay for it without an issue and walk out the door loving you, and you were able to change their life. I can't imagine anything better.
Yeah, love it. And that is a fantastic place to wrap this up. Sean, this has been a masterclass in helping these practices and these docs master these steps. And obviously, Sean hasn't given us every step along the way. These are concepts. But even if you just strung these concepts together and worked with these concepts in your team and talked about them in team meetings, your treatment acceptance would skyrocket. However, to get the secret sauce, this is what the Crabtree is masterful in. And the cool thing about their systems is they link all the steps together, from marketing to that new patient phone call, to the front desk systems, to the hygiene systems, to the diagnosis, and and all the way through it to the financial systems, the whole complete billing systems. It is a complete package of taking your practice. And can you imagine doubling your profits in the next 90 days, 6 months? I mean, would that change your life? Do you think that's worth a phone call? Sean, how do they get a hold of you?
Well, I would invite everybody who's listening or watching, go to Dental Profits Facebook group. Go to our Facebook group and apply to jump in. It's a closed group. It's where we put things like this in a high level detail every day. That would be one thing I would tell you. Also, you can find us at thecrabtreegroup.com. We actually have a course that you and I were talking about earlier that I have to tell you is one of the hardest things that I've ever done, is sitting in front of camera for 8 hours to be able to deliver this content. But I'm very proud of it. And we've got some of our offices who helped with the reenact the processes and so forth. So we have a course that they can find online very, very affordably that will walk through the specifics of each of those steps and the role that everybody plays. And they can find that at thecrabtreegroup.com. And of course, you can connect with us on all of the social media aspects right through thecrabtreegroup.com.
Perfect. Perfect. And again, what's so fun about these guys is that, Sean's partner, Cameron, they are probably some of the most fun guys to be around. So not only are you learning and making more money, they are a hoot. They just make it fun. So I highly encourage you guys to go check out the Facebook group, and I'm a member of it. It's killer. Jump on. I mean, for the price that they're charging for this system is a no-brainer. I mean, this is something that you could cut up into chunks and sit and digest with your team. Talk about digestible content. That's what we're all about. Tools of scalability. We want to help your practices grow and kill it, because I hate to tell you, fourth quarter is coming way too fast. And if you're not going to do something different, you're going to get more of the same. So again, Sean, thank you for joining our show. You killed it today. We loved having you. Any closing comments before we sign off here?
No, I love your tagline. I love what you guys are doing, Corey. I love everything about everything that you're doing at Blue IQ. And, we share a lot of the same beliefs. I mean, our focus is having happier clients, better results, making more money, but it's also about enjoying the ride. Yeah. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you, sir. Remember, gang, we are here every Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 noon Eastern. Again, we're all about tools of scalability to help your practices grow and thrive. Thanks for joining in the blue.